Inshallah, we wait for a couple minutes because in Malaysia is Isha time, which
Okay.
8:45.
No problem.
So people just finish praying, and inshallah they will come join us later. Maybe 5 minutes. Prof. Abdel Rahim, these your lines, okay?
Alhamdulillah, we tested this morning, and yesterday it was okay. Hopefully tonight is okay.
Inshallah. Yeah, no. Your video is not on, Prof. Abdel Rahim. Just now it's okay. Yeah, okay now. So,
السلام عليكم.
Salam, yeah.
هل الخط واضح؟
Yeah, clear, loud and clear.
عليكم السلام ورحمة الله.
Yeah, loud and clear, Prof. Abdel Rahim.
Yes, I can hear you well.
Yeah.
Alhamdulillah.
Yeah, thank you very much. And to Jamil, the slide is.
I just want to make sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
Is my voice clear?
Yeah, clear, loud and clear.
Alhamdulillah.
Is no slide, Dr. Abdel Rahim, Prof. Abdel Rahim, is no slide?
Shazwan will be sharing, inshallah.
Shazwan is sharing. Shazwan, are you ready? Maybe we can, what time we should start, Datuk Jamil? 9:10 is okay?
Yeah, give one, 2 minutes. 2 minutes, inshallah.
Now it's 9:10.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean 10 participants. Okay, good. Yeah. All right. We have 24 slides, mashallah. Okay, good.
Fauzan?
Yeah, we wait, Dr. Jamil, we should start or we wait for?
Yeah, should start now, inshallah.
Okay, inshallah. Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. We begin our
recording in progress.
Yes, our tripartite intellectual discourse online, number 50, with recitation of Ummul Kitab Al-Fatiha. Alhamdulillah, summa alhamdulillah. All praise to Allah SWT and salawat and salam to our Prophet Muhammad SAW. Today is 8th of July and with 20 Zulhijjah. Inshallah, we are blessed by Allah SWT. We are very fortunate to have Professor Dr. Abdel Rahim Ali, the former Vice Chancellor of International African University of Sudan, and also first and founding head of Department of Islamic Relevant Knowledge of International Islamic University of Malaysia. Thank you very much, Prof. Abdel Rahim. Welcome to our intellectual discourse online. Welcome. How are you tonight?
Thank you very much. Very welcome.
Thank
Very
you.
glad to be with you.
Thank you.
Happy to
With
join
us-
you.
Thank you very much. With us, Professor Dr. Jamil Osman, our Senior Advisor of IIIT, and Dr. Fatima Kawi, all the way from Amman.
MashaAllah.
MashaAllah, the board of member of IIIT, and we have our participant Jumal Ahmad, Noordin, Rosie, Kim Lam Wong, Roslina, and Sister Fazila Abu Bakar, sister from Igur. And thank you very much for attending this participant, this IIIT Intellectual Discourse Online, this number 50. MashaAllah, we start this, Prof. Abdel Rahim, since COVID-19. So when we cannot have this face-to-face or physical meeting, so we end up subscribe to Zoom, and we start this intellectual IIIT Intellectual Discourse Online. Alhamdulillah, this number 50. So thank you very much. And tonight, Prof. Abdel Rahim will talk about Madani, Quranic approach to question of civilization. And in Malaysia, Madani has become routine's ambitions to establish new civilization is promoted by our current Prime Minister, Datuk Sri Anwar Ibrahim, also the Chairman Emeritus of IIIT. And we know that as Dr. Hisham Talib said, that the Madani approach is begin with the Sirah Rasulullah SAW, when Prophet Mohammad SAW make hijrah from Makkah to Madinah, where he established the civilization where it's multiracial, where we have Jews, Christian, and Quraysh, and also non-Muslim also, and non-Muslims are minorities. So without further ado, I would like to invite Prof. Dr. Abdel Rahim to share with us what does it means by Quranic and Madani, the Quranic approach from the question of civilization. I think Brother Shazwan, can you share the slide? Tafadhal, Sheikh Abdel Rahim.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا رسول الله وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن والاه. My greetings, salam to all the brothers who are joining this lecture. And my subject is Madani, the Quranic approach to questions of civilization. The word Madani, which is now used in Malaysia, is very close to the Arabic word Madaniya, meaning a number of things. The closest is that Madaniya is a civilization. Madaniya is from the word Madana, which in Arabic means to stay and be stable in one place. The word Madaniya is a translation of civilization in the Arabic language, and it's relatively new. We don't find the word in that special form in the Quran, but recently, in the last 2 centuries, it's been used widely as a translation for civilization. Madaniya and civilization and Hadara. Hadara, which also comes from the word Hadara, to be present or dwelling, is seen in contrast to Badawa or Badu. Badu in the Arabic language means the act of being always immobile, the Bedouin, people who move always and never stay in one place. They're called the Bedouin, and of course in all deserts there are many of them. So Badawa is associated usually with a kind of life which is not very developed, simply because movement does not allow for institutions to grow. Whereas human settlements, as soon as they become stable, provided that they have resources and also human ingenuity. They allow for innovation to come in, they allow for institutions of learning to flourish, and also trade and industries begin to rise and prosper. That is usually followed by prosperity as an outcome of settled living, given, of course, time and resources. Many civilizations in human history have taken that course, and Islamic civilization is not an exception in that. Al-Quran refers to Badawa in one or two places in a negative sense, because the ayah, Al-A'rabu ashaddu kufran wa nifaqan wa ajdaru an la ya'lamu hududa ma anzala Allah. It's an indication that during the time of the Prophet ﷺ, some of the Bedouins did not have the time to learn the
Abdel Rahim? Yeah, we lost Prof. Abdel Rahim. And meantime, we have his slide. I think Shazwan have his slide, isn't he? He tried to explain the difference between Badawi and Hadara, where Hadara is settled down, where Badawi mean nomad. So when you settle down, you establish the institution, you also trade industries, you are Hadari. In Malaysia, our former Prime Minister, Tun Abdullah Badawi, introduced the word Islam Hadari. So it means prosperity, outcomes, settled living, given time and resources. And they have culture and civilization. Yes, so Prof. Abdel Rahim, can you start again? I mean, I explained the slide. Yeah, okay.
The line was interrupted.
Yeah, so it's okay. Can you speak louder because the mic is...
Can I continue?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead, Prof. Abdel Rahim. Maybe you just without video, because there's Datuk Jamil testing 2 days in a row. It's fine, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah.
It is not the line, his microphone.
Oh, his microphone.
You can even hold your phone.
Can you go nearer? Yeah. Can you go nearer?
I can.
Yeah, it's better. It's better.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, can I continue?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, clear.
Yes, to continue, culture and civilizations are two words that are very often used together. Culture is not synonymous with civilization. Same in Arabic, Madaniya is not as Hadara, but very often the word culture is close to Hadara, to civilization, and sometimes we use the word culture more in terms of non-material things, developments in the arts, in the poetry, in the human aspects of life. Whereas in civilization, people tend to emphasize the more material aspect of development, such as buildings, roads, industries, and innovations of technology and so on. Now, I go to the question of Western civilization vis-a-vis Islamic civilization. I don't want to attempt to categorize either Western civilization or Islamic civilization, because it's very complicated and the word civilization is too complex to be categorized. In other words, we cannot describe a civilization in a single word or not even in a number of ways. Very often, civilizations contain a number of aspects and can be described in very long terms. Whereas we sometimes, for convenience, say that Western civilization is a material civilization. This is not completely true, but it's an approximation of the concept that material aspects of life have influenced civilization of the West in a very strong and noticeable way. There are in every civilization some very negative aspects, while there are also some very positive aspects. In Western civilization, usually Westerners proud themselves in having things like democracy, scientific discovery, the individual freedoms, the rule of law, or in short, the human aspects of the civilization seem to center around these concepts. But at the same time, the main problems of Western civilization are seen to be individualism, materialism, and capitalism. Especially in the Muslim world, we tend to see these aspects because this is where our civilization, Islamic civilization, come in complete contrast with the Western civilization. Most people, most Muslims who go and live in the West face this fact, and they find that the human aspect is lost. We don't like, for example, the fact that our elderly people are always put into shelters, institutions, away from their families. The family is very weak and has become almost abandoned Western civilization as a representation of the fact that individualism is given greater stress. Children at the age of 16, 17, 18 live away from their homes and live their own lives. So that is where the Islamic civilization and the similar matters, this is where Islamic civilization become visibly different from Western civilization. Now, of course, many historians and many thinkers, philosophers have tried to categorize civilizations and also try to discuss the question of why civilizations in the history of mankind have risen, sometimes very fast, like Islamic civilization. In about 30 years, the Arabs from Mecca went out from the whole Arabia and conquered lands beyond their borders, whereas they used to be, during the Jahiliyyah, limited in their own confined land, fighting tribes among each other, and they were mostly subjects of the civilizations of that time, mainly the Persian civilization and the Roman civilization, as they used to call it. Now, this fast rise of the civilization has beguiled many Orientalists, and many people have tried to find answers why Islamic civilization spread so fast and stayed so long. Almost 1,000 years of Islamic civilizations where institutions flourished and all sorts of human welfare and human pleasures were there. The only place where there were universities was the Muslim world. The only place where inventions were taking place, even with the participation of non-Muslims such as Jews and Christians in Andalusia, the place for innovation and scientific discovery was the Muslim world. Why was this so? And why did civilizations like the Roman civilization and later the Islamic civilization disintegrate and ceased to be growing anymore. They fossilized. These are questions for the philosophers and the historians, but they are interesting here as we observe differences between our two civilizations and try to find out whether we are on the way up or whether we are on the way down, whether Western civilization is on the way up still and continuously going to be like that, or is it going down now? Now, for such questions, I go back to the Quran and discuss a number of interesting aspects, the values. Now, Islamic civilization. Islamic civilization, to summarize from the beginning, is based on the Quran. The values of the Quran, the teachings of the Quran, and of course, as interpreted by the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. These values, I cannot go into the details, but they are largely spiritual and partly also dealing with the human life, dealing with instructions and laws that concern human society, especially Muslim society. There are instructions of the Quran dealing with the usra, the family. There are instructions dealing with the way the economy should be controlled. There are instructions dealing with the politics, the relationship between citizens and their rulers. There are instructions even with regard to war and who wages war and why war can be raised and can be waged and should not be waged. Wallahu la yuhibbul mu'tadin. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not like the aggressors. Things like that have to be found in the Quran, creating a balance between law on the one hand and the spirit on the other. This balance between spirit and i'tiqad, belief, faith, the doctrine, and between the laws is very important to Islam. If that balance is lost, then the ethos of Islamic civilization is lost. The Quran encouraged Muslims to go out and find out. قُلْ سِيرُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ. Encourage inquiry and destroy it, annihilated superstition. Many superstitions that prevailed before Islam were completely abolished by Quranic faith. For instance, people used to look into the future, al-ghayb, by reading of the stars, or reading the palm of the hand, or by throwing stones. Now the Quran said that all this is rubbish. People have to find out about things. People have to try. And this is the foundation of science, is Islamic civilization. So the Quran encouraged inquiry and hence discovery and advanced all sciences by bringing the foundations in the faith for such inquiry and such discovery. This is why learning institutions as well as welfare establishments flourished in Islamic civilization. For instance, the University of Al-Qirawai and the university in what is now Morocco and Tunisia were the first institutions of learning to be world institutions, to which centers students came from all over the world. So the concept of an international university where learning attracts the best of minds, the best of professors, and at the same time students from all races, all religions. The theory of that kind of university first started in Al-Kirawan and in Al-Zaytuna. And that's why from those institutions there flourished a great civilization and a great number of knowledge. For example, books by Abna Maymun, who were Jews, were written in Andalusia and in West Africa, Northwest Africa, as a contribution in the Islamic civilization, even though they were Jews. Engineering, medicine, by people like Ibn Sina, Avicenna, and Al-Farabi, Averroes. Philosophers and medical doctors at the same time. These were part of Islamic civilization, and they were the fruit, the outcome of a faith which believed in trying, in discovering, and in producing useful things for humanity. For example, the institution of waqf, endowments. Endowments in Islam are recognized even by Orientalists to be unique in their nature. In Muslim civilization, the waqf institution became so strong that even birds, old horses, were given part of the wealth of the wealthy, so that an old horse, instead of being destroyed or neglected, is taken to a special farm where they're fed and kept until they die. Even birds were given a special waqf. That means that the wealth in Islamic civilization was really being shared, not only by other humans, but also by other beings, other living beings. That was the spirit of Islamic civilization, and it was at a certain time a very flourished and very happy, I would say, a very happy civilization. Whereas sometimes we find that in Western civilization and in other civilizations, a lot of wealth is seen and felt, but it's not shared. And therefore, the happiness that it should bring is not there. However, unfortunately, later, the balance, which I earlier spoke about in Islamic civilization between what is material and what is spiritual, was lost. New generations came during the Abbasid and the Umayyad period, who enjoyed the wealth of the Muslim civilization, of the earlier works, the hardships through which their fathers and grandfathers went, the conquering of other lands and the bringing in of lots of resources. That was early a symptom of the earlier generations. Later on, new generations came, enjoyed that wealth, and went after pleasures. They went after amusements. They went after poetry and pleasure, like in Al-Andalus, for example. Most people went for singing parties, music, and the young always spend their time composing poetry like Ibn Zaydun and poetry about love and nature and gardens, things like that. There is nothing against that in the Quran, of course, but indulgence is not a Muslim aspect, is not encouraged by the Quran nor by the laws of the Sunnah. When people become attracted by the pleasures of life, the balance is lost. And as a result, many Muslims became worried in the history of Islam and wanted to put greater emphasis on the spirit and the spiritual development of the soul. and that was called Sufism. Sufism emerged in the Muslim world, I guess, because of the spirit of indulgence which was observed by many sheikhs and many ulama. People like Junayd or Al-Ghazali, earlier on by other Sufi leaders, they noticed that the young were being attracted by the pleasures of life and not paying enough attention to the spirit. So they thought that there was something wrong. They needed to balance off by putting emphasis on the esoteric, by contemplation, by continuous exercising of ibadah, worship, by qiyamul layl, by indulging in dhikr, remembrance. When the Sufi orders flourished in the Muslim world, something else happened which was very unfortunate, and that was some people became totally involved in the spiritual exercise while others went for spiritual exercises, others went for pleasures of life and the material life. This is a division which Islam does not know. We find it in the West. We find Rahbaniya. It's either people confining themselves to the acts of worshipping and therefore not marrying and not enjoying the pleasures of life, living away from society, or indulging in those pleasures and having too much of it. That disintegration between the two components of something is the beginning of disintegration in the Muslim world. It's like the components of milk, for example. If you take the water away from the fat in the milk, you don't have milk anymore. You have water and fat. That is disintegration, the separation of the components. That, of course, destroys the balance and destroys even the composition of whatever it is. In a civilization, if this happens, which did happen in Islamic history, then the spirit of Islam is lost, unfortunately. Now I go to the second question, which Quranic values reflect more on Islamic civilization or Muslim civilization more than ours. I cannot, of course, count the number of values that are contained in the Quran because this is a study by itself, but I will put emphasis on a number of values which concern our present times more than ours. Values which seem to be lost in present prevailing Western civilization and therefore are more important to emphasize. I begin with saying that the Quran does not discourage investment and the strive to develop and to invest. In fact, Quran, unlike many spiritual books, encouraged to a great extent the human efforts to go out and enjoy life. There are many ayahs in that context. For instance, هو الذي جعل لكم الأرض ذلولا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made the earth willing, congenial. فامشوا في مناكبها وكلوا من رزقه وإليه النشور. Another ayah is called من حرم زينة الله التي أخرج لعباده والطيبات من الرزق قل هي للذين آمنوا في الحياة الدنيا خالصة يوم القيامة كذلك نفصل الآيات لقوم يعلمون. The translation of that is O children of Adam, take your adornment at every mosque, and eat and drink, but do not be extravagant. Surely he does not love the extravagant. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not love the extravagant. But of course, while encouraging investment and enjoying life, the Quran forbids extravagance and tabzir. For example, the ayah, أَلَمْ تَرَوْا أَنَّ اللَّهَ سَخَّرَ لَكُم مَا فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَمَا فِي الْأَرْضِ وَأَسْبَغَ عَلَيْكُمْ نِعَمَهُ ظَاهِرَةً وَبَاطِنَةً وَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَن يُجَادِلُ فِي اللَّهِ بِغَيْرِ عِلْمٍ. The translation of that, أَلَمْ تَرَوْا أَنَّ اللَّهَ سَخَّرَ لَكُم. And of his science is that he created for you, of yourselves, spouses, the ayah, وَآتِ ذَا الْقُرْبَى حَقَّهُ وَالْمِسْكِينَ وَابْنَ السَّبِيلِ. أَلَمْ تَرَ أَنَّ اللَّهَ سَخَّرَ لَكُم مَا فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. That means that everything in the heavens and on the earth is being willing to be used by human beings. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala showered upon you the blessings which are clear and those which are not clear. As a result of this encouragement, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created a Muslim civilization which was encouraged by this kind of Quranic value to go out, search, invest, and develop nature. But at the same time, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala discouraged al-israf. The concept of israf is mentioned in the Quran so many times. Also, the concept of tabzir. And the two concepts are slightly different. The concept is israf is using what is halal, but excessively. The drinking of water or the drinking of milk is of course halal. The eating of food is halal and it's encouraged. But excessive eating and excessive drinking is not good for the health and not good for the resources. That is why this is called israf, which has been translated by the interpreters of the Quran as extravagance and sometimes as excessive use. Whereas tabzir, the word tabzir in Quran is used usually with the use of wealth in issues or in places where it is not required to be used. Ignoring what is important, ignoring where money should be employed and used, and spending it where it should not be. Now, when we look at our present civilization and notice, for example, that millions of pounds, millions of dollars are being spent on, say, stadiums, football, that dancers making videos and sending them and selling them are sold for millions of dollars, we realize that this is a kind of tabzir. And the Quran says, إِنَّ الْمُبَذِّرِينَ كَانُوا إِخْوَانَ الشَّيَاطِينَ. The extravagant are brothers of Satan's. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves not Satan's. The concept of taskhir, therefore, which is the Arabic for harnessing, is very relevant for the betterment of life. We have a concept there that the whole world, mountains, winds, waters, light and darkness, are all from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for us to employ and to use. It is slightly different. I think perhaps it is radically different from Western concept of nature being wild, nature being hostile, and it is for man to try and tame it. But that is not the Islamic concept. The concept in Islam is that nature has been harnessed for the human beings to use and utilize. It's friendly, but man has to find out how to bring out the beneficial and the fruitful things from natural resources and use it in the correct way. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks of earlier generations, not in the term of civilizations, but in the term of qarn, and sometimes he uses the word generation, and sometimes he uses the word city, qarya. Qarya, qarn, are words that refer to earlier people. And when they are used in the Quran, they are used in the sense of earlier nations having been subjected to the test by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as a civilization, and some of them collapsed. They were destroyed, made to perish by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because of the ways which they followed. Whereas the other nations who showed gratefulness and thanked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for what they've been given, they were made to enjoy the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and continue to flourish. For instance, given the ayah in Surah Al-Nahl, the bees, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions لَقَدْ كَانَ لِسَبَإٍ. Sheba in the Quran is mentioned as a story of a tragic destruction of an earlier happy civilization in Yemen, in Sheba. لقد كان لسبإ في مسكنهم آية جنتان عن يمين وشمال كلوا من رزق ربكم واشكروا له بلدة طيبة ورب غفور فأعرضوا فأرسلنا عليهم سيل العرم وبدلناهم بجنتيهم جنتين ذواتي أكل خمط وأثل وشيء من سدر قليل ذلك جزيناهم ببغيهم وهل نجازي إلا الكفور. The translation of that, surely there used to be a sign for the people of Sheba in their residence. In their residences, 2 gardens on the right and on the left. Eat of your Lord's provision and give thanks to him, a good land and an oft forgiving Lord. Have you not seen that Allah has subjected you to whatever is in the heavens and wherever is the earth, and showered you with his blessings? These verses tell the story of one example, just one example of how a city, a civilization is destroyed because of ungratefulness. Ungratefulness can mean a number of things. The misuse, the extravagance, the decadence of the people of the civilization, which Ibn Khaldun, in some of his sociological discussions of Muqaddimah, he says that civilizations go into a cycle. First, the people are strong and happy. The next generation become decadent, and the third generation become weak and get destroyed by other, more stronger people. Now I go to the second value, which is compassion. Compassion, or rahmah in the Quran, of course, is a cardinal to all teachings of the Quran. I refer to the Surah of Al-Fatiha. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose from all 99 versions of his characteristics, of his sifat, the sifa of Rahmah and Rahim. We say in every surah and every moment, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, the compassionate, the merciful. This is an indication that this particular aspect of Allah's names is emphasized in the Quran. The Quran itself is called Rahmah. لقد جاءكم وما أرسلناك إلا رحمة للعالمين. The Prophet, in fact, all prophets are sent as a sign of compassion from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because their main role is to bring people from darkness into light. Compassion is advised in the family as well as in society. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala orders man, أخفض لهما واخفض لهما, to your parents, واخفض لهما جناح الذل من الرحمة وقل رب ارحمهما كما ربياني صغيرا. Say with regard to your parents, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have mercy of them and compassion, just as they brought me when I was a child. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions the weak and the poor. للفقراء الذين احصروا في سبيل الله لا يستطيعون ضربا في الأرض يحسبهم الجاهل أغنياء من التعفف. And also ليس منا من لم يرحم صغيرنا ويوقر كبيرنا. ليس منا من لم يرحم صغيرنا is not a part of the Quran. This is a hadith. This is a sunnah, and it is in Tirmidhi. It says, he is not one of us who does not have compassion for the children of us and those who do not respect our elders. So respect for the elder and compassion for the younger is part of the Islamic spirit. If one does not have that, one does not have the necessary Islamic quality. All Sharia laws, in fact, this is said by a famous scholar of Islam, all Sharia laws are said to be either for justice or compassion or both of them. Any law is said by these ulama. Any law or instruction, moral instruction or legal attitude, is either meant for the achievement of justice or meant for the achievement of compassion. So all Sharia is justice and compassion. If any law does not achieve that, then it is not an Islamic law. Sustainability is also a question of modern civilization. What does the Quran say about sustainability? I would like to begin on this question by asking the question whether the Quran really speaks of sustainability. Maybe the word, the Arabic word, is not there directly, but many values, many concepts of the Quran relate very closely to the concept of sustainability. Let us begin with the concept of the second life. The Quran strongly advises that life is not in vain. Human life is continuous, eternal, but it is divided into two parts. The present life, which we know about, and the second life, which the Quran tells us about. They are only divided by a phase of death. Death is not the end of human life, it is the beginning of a new life. That concept itself is relevant to sustainability because it means that life is not in vain, that we have to arrange right from now for our second life. And this is what the Quran says. He says, وَلَا تَنْسَ نَصِيبَكَ مِنَ الدُّنْيا. Do not forget your portion of this present life. So you take from here, from this present life, where you can invest and work, to the next life where you enjoy the fruits and results of your work in this life, because you are not going to be able to work in the second life. In the second life, you enjoy the results of your examination, but in this life, you go through the examination. In other words, if you want a garden in the second life, you do it now. If you want to live happily, then you prepare for that happiness right from here, and you take it away with you. You don't take out any wealth from this life there, you take your good works. This concept is very important to the question of sustainability because it means that as a Muslim, one has to do a lot of work here which is not enjoyed in this life. One has to do a lot of sacrifice for the second life. One has to save things, spend money to get it in the second life. That, in a way, is very relevant to sustainability. But even though that may not be shared by other people who do not believe in the hereafter, there are concepts which can be shared by others. For example, the continuity of the human race is very important to sustenance, which is often not mentioned in our worldly discussions nowadays, but I think it is very important. The Quran refers to the need for human beings to continue as a race. And as a result, the Quran enjoins marriage. And the
Prof. Abdel Rahim, we lost your connection. Prof. Abdel Rahim, are you there? Yeah, maybe we lost his voice. He's talking about the Islamic civilization, about compassion, about life. Shazwan, can you go to next slide? Yeah, about sustainability. Before that, he talked about compassion. Before that, it's about care. Can you go about care? Can you go to the slide, previous slide? Care. So in Islamic civilization, talk about care, about spending very cautiously, not extravaganza. Previous slide. Yes, to sustain. This also is a very good concept. Then next slide is a care in a second. Yeah, and then talk about compassion. Yeah, next slide is compassion. Go next slide. Yeah, from Rahim. Then distractions. Okay, then the destruction of civilizations. But certain civilization have been destroyed because of the what they have done. Okay, Prof. Rahim, you are here, so please continue. Talk about later. I think, yeah, about the sustainability. I think sustainability, or I think is it? Yeah, we're talking about sustainability just now, isn't it? Prof. Rahim, go ahead. Are you there? Can you say something?
Now?
Yeah, okay, continue. Yeah,
Now I can
continue.
hear you.
Yeah, yeah. Now it's about sustainability,
Can I
isn't it?
continue?
Yeah, continue. Can you go nearer to the microphone or the phone?
Can I continue now?
Yeah, go ahead. Sustainability. Or
The
you go
Quran
to,
prohibits
yeah.
the Quran prohibits corruption. وإذا تولى سعى في الأرض ليفسد فيها ويهلك الحرث والنسل والله لا يحب الفساد. Allah does not like corruption. Then the ayah, there is a hadith also in which the Prophet ﷺ instructs the army that they must not destroy, they must not kill young people or women or old men, nor should they attack monks who are living separately in their cottages, and do not destroy any palm tree or any tree, and do not destroy any building. That concept of forbidding facade is part of this concept of sustenance in the Quran. To sustain resources, waste is forbidden. Similarly, the excessive use of resources is not allowed. There is a conceptual difference between tabdhir and facade, which I already spoke about. Now, I go to the second one, which is care. Now, care, I need not emphasize that because unlike capitalism, the Quran emphasizes care and threatens against hoarding, riba, ihtikar. Spending is continuously encouraged. I cannot count the number of verses in the Quran which speak about spending, sharing. آمنوا بالله ورسوله وأنفقوا مما جعلكم مستخلفين فيه ويسألونك ماذا ينفقون قل العفو لن تنالوا البر حتى تنفقوا مما تحبون. All this refers to the spending, and the spending means sharing with others, like al-masakin, wabd al-sabil, for example. Give the kinsman his right, and the needy, and the traveler, and never squander. The squanderers, brothers of Satan, and Satan is unthankful to his dog. So wealth is meant to circulate, to go down through the veins of society so that the whole body of the human society enjoys life. It's like blood. Wealth is not meant to concentrate or to circulate only among the rich. It's so that it be not a thing taken in turns among the rich of you. That is the injunction in Surah, in Quran. I go to the next. The destruction of civilizations. According to the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala provides to humans. And also, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala causes nations to prosper when people are grateful. But when nations become proud, aggressive, and ungrateful, they are warned and caused to suffer and perish. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran says, وَلَوْ أَنَّ أَهْلَ الْقُرَىٰ آمَنُوا وَاتَّقَوْا لفتحنا عليهم بركات من السماء والأرض ولكن كذبوا فأخذناهم بما كانوا يكسبون. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala again gives the example of Sheba. In all these verses, there is what we can call a social law. When people are grateful, their civilization continues and flourishes. When they are ungrateful, they squander wealth. When they become extravagant, when they spend money in matters of trifling, when they ignore the poor and the needy, and they do not put their wealth in the right places, then the civilization disintegrates. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also says, وَلَقَدْ أَرْسَلْنَا إِلَى أُمَمٍ مِّن قَبْلِكَ فَأَخَذْنَاهُمْ بِالْبَأْسَاءِ وَالضَّرَّاءِ لَعَلَّهُمْ يَتَضَرَّعُونَ فَلَوْلَا إِذْ جَاءَهُمْ بَأْسُنَا تَضَرَّعُوا وَلَكِنْ قَسَتْ قُلُوبُهُمْ وَزَيَّنَ لَهُمُ الشَّيْطَانُ مَا كَانُوا يَعْمَلُونَ. And we have sent 2 nations before you and seized them with poverty and hardship so they might humble themselves to us. So when they forgot what they were reminded of, we opened unto them the gates of everything, until when they rejoiced in what they were given, we seized them suddenly, and behold, they were sore confounded. In that ayah in Surah Al-An'am, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives a very interesting story about
Prof. Abdel Rahim, you have 5 minutes.
Nations being warned in their messages of the prophets. When they ignore the message, they are seized by hardship and suffering. When they do not respond to the hardship and suffering, you expect the Quran to say at that time they perish. No. Everything is open to them. That means they are given abundance of everything. That is the interesting part of the test. When they do not abide, when they do not recognize the fact that they are being reminded, then they are made to forget everything. And they indulge. It's only when they indulge that they perish. And the perishment comes suddenly, according to this ayah. Now, next point, I would like to conclude that these last values which I mentioned are some of the Quranic values, not all of the Quranic values, of course. These are concepts relating to questions of civilizations which are, I thought, may be interesting to our civilization. And it is also true that some of these points do correspond to the tenets of Madani, or script as upheld by Prime Minister of Malaysia, namely sustenance, compassion, sharing, and care. These, of course, are open to discussion by our respected contributors now listening to this lecture. And I apologize for the line perhaps sometimes not being as good as I expected it to be. However, I wish to thank at the end of this lecture all those who attended it, and Dr. Fauzan for be willing to monitor moderate the gathering, and to IIIT, of course, Southeast Asia, especially Dr. Jamil Osman for inviting me to give this talk. I have taken too long of your time, and thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Jazakumullah khair, Prof. Dr. Abdel Rahim. Now I very glad to open the discussion, question and answers. There are few already questions through chat, but I would like the participant to unmute yourself and ask the question directly to Prof. Abdel Rahim. I guess Brother Noordin have a lot of questions. Go ahead, Brother Noordin. Can you unmute yourself? Yeah, go ahead. Yes,
Yes,
brother.
Prof, can you hear me?
Yeah, can you speak louder, please?
Okay, okay. Yes, thank you, Prof, for the time. I have several questions, Prof. My first question is, what about the development of Sufism in the West, Prof? Will the development of Sufism will not able to revitalize the Western civilization because, as you say,
Yes.
that it tends to move the direction of Western civilization to other extreme pendulum? What do you think about? Because you
That's the
say
first
that
question. The
Sufism,
second
yeah,
question.
yes. And my second question is about the concept of tashkir, Prof. Does this concept also contain the spirit of Islamic environmentalism? Thank you.
Okay, there are two questions. Prof. Abdel Rahim.
I'm sorry, I'm not able to hear.
The
The
first
line is.
question. The first question is about the Sufism and how the Sufism. I guess he put it uh, in the in the chat about the current development of Sufism in the West. Will it not be able to revitalize Western civilization because it tends to move direction of Western civilization to other extreme pendulum? So how Sufism and the Western civilization? Maybe Brother Noordin mean if the Muslims in the Western civilization, if Sufism is not in the non-Muslim, I don't know, they have monotheism. Then the other one is, does the concept of tashkir also contain the concept of Islamic environmentalism? Yeah, and it's sustainable. Tashkir and sustainable. There are two questions for you.
The question of tashkir, the concept of tashkir,
Yes.
and the other one is.
It's about Sufism. How Sufism will help the Western civilization.
Okay. Well, I think with regard to Sufism, the learned Sufis have made it clear that you can have pleasures in your hands, but do not take them to your heart. In other words, there is nothing wrong with having wealth to be utilized. But the problem is when you love it, you take it to your heart. If they think, if you take it to heart, then you become attached to it so much that you don't have a place for the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is what actually real life, when people become mainly interested in accumulation of wealth, then they forget about other things. They even sometimes forget about their own families. They forget about other people who live around them, and they forget about Allah in the end, the provider himself. But to have wealth in your hand and spend it wisely and give everyone is right. The tradition says, give unto everyone their right. The child, the wife, the father, the neighbor, the state, the jihad. Everyone has a right in one's wealth. Be it small or be it large, the wealth has to be shared. Because even in concept of zakatul fitr, everyone has to give something out. Even the poor have to give a small portion at the end of Ramadan. So this is, I think, the concept that corrects the path of Sufism. Some Sufis, of course, have taken it too far, making it, as I mentioned in the paper, making it look more like Rahbaniya. And Rahbaniya, monasticism, is not an Islamic concept. When people abandon life altogether and live apart from society, just to confine themselves to their ibadah, to worship, this is Rahbaniyya. It's known in Christianity and is mentioned in the Quran. وَرَهْبَانِيَّةً ابْتَدَعُوهَا مَا كَتَبْنَاهَا عَلَيْهِمْ. It's not written for them. Now, the part of Sufism which becomes Rahbaniyya, I think is a departure from the correct path of Islam. The second one is Taskhir. By Taskhir, harnessing, I understand that nature is not an enemy. Nature is made by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be utilized by humans. It is all for us. And therefore, it is learning that enables us and empowers us to use nature. In the past, people used animals for food and for traffic and for transport. Now we use other things. We use light. We use energy. These are all resources for us. But the squandering of these resources and the misuse or the use to excess is all forbidden. And that is the meaning of taskhir. It is important.
Prof. Abdel Rahim, are you there? Well, maybe now Dr. Fatima Kawi has to continue his answer. Okay, Dr. Fatima Kawi, can you answer? He's online.
Yes.
Yeah, can you? I think Prof. Abdel Rahim's back. Can you ask a question to him?
Assalamu alaikum.
Salam.
Okay, first, salam to everybody. Thank you very much. I think this lecture of Professor Abdel Rahim was very comprehensive. Thank you, Professor Abdel Rahim. If you allow me to say a very short comment about this topic of Madani society, especially with the name is used now widely in Malaysia for various reasons. I would like to deal with the issue of Madani or Madaniyya in at least three different dimensions.
Okay.
First, it's a linguistic term, لفظ لغوي. It's a mental construct, a مفهوم. It's also a pragmatic term, مصطلح تداولي. In each case, you can deal with each one of these cases in various ways. In Arabic, and perhaps in many Muslim societies, the term is used in two main ways. The first way is they used Madani just to avoid the word Ilmani because of its bad reputation. So in order not to talk about Almaniya, which might have so much resistance in Muslim society, they used a better word, which is Madani. The other way is mostly in reference to non-governmental organization, which is, as you know, spread widely in Western governments, as opposed to the government entities to provide various services. For example, if Madani is equal to what we call civic Madani, من المدينة, as also non-government organizations of the present connotation, I think we should remember the traditional Islamic society, the type of traditional Islamic society where the Madani society was the dominant paradigm and the dominant way of providing services to the Muslim community. And the government was very small. It's very limited in its ways of dealing with the day-to-day problems of the society. Education was not government issue. Al-Waqf, as you mentioned, Dr. Abdel Rahim, the Sufi orders were mainly providing more services than what the government might do. So the problem with the modern world is that government has controlled almost everything. So private initiatives to provide services, to provide or even doing reform or renewal type of work is very limited because the government is almost controlling everything. So in order to use Madani in the present contents, it's better to remember this kind of understanding of where the type of Muslim society in comparison with the present type of societies, which is controlled by government and very limited opportunities to providing other types of initiatives in the society. Thank you very much
Thank you very much.
This enlightening opportunity of talking about Madani concept.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Waalaikumsalam. Jazakumullah khair, Dr. Fatima Kawi, for his viewpoint and opinion. And I open to others. We have Brother Farid. We have brother from Museum of Maryland, United States. I don't know what is your name. I just know Museum of Maryland, United States. We have Prof. Abdul Aziz, I'm mistaken. And we have Sister Fadilat, Brother Yusuf, Brother Shihab, Prof. Waramli, I'm mistaken. And others, you can just unmute and ask question. Any questions? Or should I read the chat? Yeah, I think Sister Fadilat, you want to ask question? Yeah, you put some chat here. Okay. Okay. Well, I want to, by waiting for others to ask question. This is Sister Nazli. My question, can I relate sustainable with istiqamah? Most of time, I think, why don't you just ask questions, Sister Nazli? Can you unmute? Yes, go ahead.
Assalamualaikum.
Assalam.
Prof, I have a question. Can I kind of relate sustainable with istiqamah, meaning that our iman most of the time goes through up and down, so we need to work on our iman so that it remains up all the time. My question is, can I equate sustainable with istiqamah? We need to be istiqamah when it comes to ensuring our iman is always in a high iman, high taqwa. Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Nazli. Prof. Abdel Rahim?
Yes, I think first I comment on Dr. Fathi. I think the points he brought are very important. I forgot to mention that, but I am using the word in its Arabic original sense and not in the sort of terminology that is being often used nowadays. And I think his points are very important to remember. Yes, civil society, I guess, is partly related to the question of Madani. And he is quite right in saying that in traditional Muslim society, it's actually the society that catered for almost everything in civil institutions. That I mentioned Waqf, for instance. I can also mention the mosque, because the mosque was not just a building for prayer. It was a whole institution of society working together and practicing cooperation in different fields. You can mention a number of other institutions which are completely to the population, to the people, to exercise, and they continued in a way to survive and work even where states collapsed. There were many countries where the state collapsed. There was no state, no government, Islamic government, but nevertheless, the civil society continued to uphold, for example, under the Soviet occupation of certain Muslim countries, civil society took over. They continued to educate their children in a very good way, and they continued to cooperate in many fields of life. Yeah, that's important. The question of istiqamah being an equivalent to sustenance, no, I don't think it is very relevant, I'm sure, yes. But istiqamah is more inclusive than sustenance, because istiqamah is actually being true to the teachings of Islam in every field, not only in the field of economizing or being upright. Istiqamah is being upright, yes, but in all fields of moral behavior. That's why I think it's a bit too wide for the question of sustenance, although, of course, sustenance requires istiqamah in a certain field so that it can be achieved.
Thank you very much, Prof. Abdel Rahim. And yeah, the civil society, like what Datuk Sri Anwar mentioned, is want to have his own definition. And I think both of you aware about the Al-Farabi. And this is the basic what Datuk Asnoa want to mention, based on knowledge, based on Sa'idah, based on truth, based on the...
Sorry, I lost the sound.
Hello? Yes? Yes, Prof. Abdel Rahim. Okay, I think Faiz, you want to ask question. Go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Can you hear me?
Clear.
I just has a question. I've been asking myself, this notion of creating a change or transformation within the whole nation in the context of creating a cultural change. Do you have any view whether which one first? Is it political will first, or is it also education, meaning educating the masses vis-a-vis having the will or the inverted comma position power to bring about the change? Although I can understand it's a chicken and egg question, but do you have some view about, do we need the political will first, or do we need society to also be educated, to understand what completely the concept of Madani as a society should be? The Islamic total concept.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Farid. And how about Sister Fadila? Go ahead, ask question before Prof. Rahim.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you so much, Prof. My question is, if it is a spirituality, we can apply, we can personally put the effort for strive the personal growth, like sincerity, the righteousness, and seeking closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So now is important to we realize the essentials of this Islamic spirit need to be applied for the society. So how can we achieve the personal Islamic spirit to our society? Thank you so much.
Thank you. Prof. Rahim, go ahead and unmute. There are two questions from Brother Farid and Sister Fadila. Go ahead. You are unmute, please, Brother Abdel Rahim. Prof. Abdel Rahim. Please unmute. We can't hear you because you are muting. Prof. Abdel Rahim. Can you unmute? Yes, go ahead.
Now?
Yes, clear.
Yes?
Yes.
Can you please summarize what she said to me, because the line wasn't good.
Oh, okay.
I couldn't.
Fadilat, where are you? You're asking, she asked about the spirituality and also sincerity and close to Allah. I think basically taqwa and so on. I guess.
So,
Yeah, Fadilat?
yeah, sorry. If it is a spirituality is in the personal journey, we can achieve personally, like sincerity and by taqwa and closeness to the Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But now is essential to this Islamic spirit, the personal spirit to we need to apply to our society, to the whole community. How can we achieve this? This is my question.
Okay, from individual to society. Okay.
Yeah, yes.
Thank you. Yes, Prof. Farid said begin with the person or education. I mean the political will or education.
Yes. Well, expanding the personal so that it is exercised on a social level is the real question of how states can sometimes help the individual to bring out their values into the open. Yeah, this is important, but that is an area for a number of things. First, the institutions, like educational institutions, and it's also a question for the law. Sometimes the law and the courts need to help the individual in a way that certain aspects of morality, certain aspects of values are exercised by the society rather than by individuals. But in the end, I think the question, the basic question, is whether individuals are happy and willing for these values to prevail in their own lives. If an individual is really devoted to a certain way of life, then that reflects naturally on society. This is the general belief. It comes in to express itself in either institutions or in state values, especially if there is a democracy. If there is a democracy, then individual values are reflected into the institutions and also into the laws. That is naturally a flow of democratic will. So I think we first need to make sure that individuals are really convinced and willing to see their values reflected on the social arena, the communal arena. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I guess now it's 10:30. Okay, salam to everyone. I have to leave in. Okay, thank you, Prof. Dr. Fatimah Kavi. Okay, thank you. Thank you for joining us. By the way, next month we're going to have Dr. Fatimah Kavi in 3rd week of August, inshallah. Thank you very much for everybody. And I think now is 10:31. Thank you very much for all of us to join. And we will close with Tasbih Kafarah and Surah Al-Asr. Subhanakallahu wa bihamdika asyhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. Wal 'asri innal insana fi khusr illa alladhina amanu wa amilus solihati wa tawassaw bil haqq wa tawassaw bis sabr. Thank you very much, Prof. Abdel Rahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.